Fine, yourself?
A filmer. I think I met you once.
Yeah, we met. I usually over on that side.
Yeah, what? I remember for a while the township website carried the videos. Where are they now? On YouTube?
On YouTube, yeah. If you give me your email ID, I'll send you the link. Because they'll be there tomorrow morning.
Hmm?
If you have an email, I'll send you the link.
You'll have this tomorrow?
It'll be there by 7 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Call to order, meeting of the Township Committee for November 18th, 2013. Provisions of the Open Public Meeting Law.
Pursuant to the requirements of the Open Public Meetings Law, adequate public notice of this meeting has been given. By publication in the required newspapers of the date, time, and location of this meeting within 48 hours in advance. By posting advance written notice on the official bulletin board in the municipal building. By filing advance written notice with the township clerk for the purpose of public inspection.
This time, everyone please turn off your cell phones and put them on the vibrator, turn them off. Thank you. Roll call of officials present.
Committeewoman Taylor? Here. Committeeman Millie?
Here.
Committeeman Lasella?
Here.
Deputy Mayor McKay?
Here.
Mayor Morano?
Here. Reverend Eric Hall here?
Yes. Let's join together in the invocation. God, we're thankful as we face this season of Thanksgiving. We're thankful for our friends and neighbors in the community of Barnegat. We're thankful for our elected officials and our leaders. We're thankful for our police, our fire, our EMS and other first responders. We're thankful for our public servants. Indeed, bless the efforts of this gathering so that the community that is Barnegat can thrive and prosper now and into the future. Amen.
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 Thank you, everyone. Everyone rise, salute to the flag, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Resolution 2013-420.
Resolution authorizing the township committee to retire into closed session for the purpose of discussing personnel, public safety, contractual, and litigation matters.
None needed tonight, Mayor? Thank you. Motion to table resolution. So moved.
Second.
Committeewoman Taylor? Yes. Committeeman Millie?
Yes.
Committeeman Lasella?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McKay?
Yes.
Mayor Morano?
Yes. Thank you. Mayor's report. First, I'd like to thank everybody and have a very happy Thanksgiving, you and your family. Seems like they're kind of missing Thanksgiving these days and all right to Christmas. So just like to say everybody happy Thanksgiving and have a nice, healthy and happy one. I'd like to congratulate Mr. Billy on his efforts. Won the election. Congratulations. And just Basically, mayor's report that I do have, I received a letter from the county, and Jake, you'll like this, they like to go 50% with us on open space if you have a project. They did agree, they sent the letter back, so if there's any money left in open space, we'll take a look.
Thank you.
And we're going to have presentation from the town center, the commercial core, from the people that put it all together, so you can understand what's going on there. And Ralph, I turn it all over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and committee, thanks for your time. What I'd like to do today, in just about 10 or 15 minutes, is share with you a little bit of the history of what we've been going through.
Introduce who's speaking, please.
Absolutely, my apology. Ralph Dawes, 108 Beavis Drive, Barnegat, New Jersey, Chairman of the Planning Board, Chairman of the Master Plan Subcommittee. Okay? And just more or less close out the project. And I'll give you a little background in terms of what we've done with the master plan, how it evolved into defining the town center and the commercial core. I want to share with you some of the specifics in terms of the area impacted, the benefits associated with it. And then at the end, we'll ask that the township committee then take on the leadership either through the economic development committee or some other commission that you designate to kind of take advantage of what we now are bringing to the board. So before I do that, because I could say that this project has had a long history of from June 2005 is when we first started to embark on updating and actually rewriting the master plan for Barnegat Township. The master plan for Barnegat Township hadn't been really updated or revised since 1978. So you're with a master plan that designated, that supported a township of about 2,500 people. And today we have, what, about 23,000 to 24,000 people.
21,638.
Thank you, Mr. Billy.
2010.
Oh, we lost the clue.
In 2010, that doesn't include the building that we've had across the way. So,
No, that's the
but in any event, the point to be made here is that there's been significant growth, and what we really haven't done is taken a more serious look at the master plan, which defines more or less a direction on how you're going to support the now town of Barnegat. The demographics have obviously changed. West of the Parkway, age-restricted areas were just a thought back then. The developments that we've had with the forest, the families here and the building of the schools, all just somebody's dream. So what we wanted to do was take some time, work with the state, get the approval, and update our plan. Actually, we rewrote it with new vision statement and associated documentation. So that master plan set the stage for us, allowed us then to build the town center, requested through the state to designate a town center for Barnegat, which has some very significant advantages from a commercial perspective and economic development, as well as a commercial core. Those are the two items I'm going to focus on this evening. The list over there gives you the dates and the milestones of when things took place, beginning in June 2005. So if you're having trouble sleeping tonight, you want to take something like that home, feel free. And, but before I go and we get into the presentation, I want to give recognition to people who have been involved over the last 5 or 6 years, 7 years. And I had to write them down because there's been many people involved. Ken Matthews, Tony Altameri, Debbie Spadell, Jerry Harper, Danielle Novak, Sarah Winchester, Bill Williamson, Frank Pesci, Dorothy Ryan, Cynthia Ron, and Stacy Daniels. So I just wanted to thank those of you that are here, and public record, thank those folks who weren't able to come to see the fruition of their work. So we go to the first chart. So the background, though, from 2011 to current, what we did is we updated the master plan, as I said, and we solicited the support for a town center designation. And that's important because that'll give you some benefits that other towns don't have and advantages over items like grants and building land use requirements. The state considered it and put it on an agenda December 7th. We worked closely with Peter Vandekoy, who I'll introduce in a bit. And then we got the approval for the town center and commercial core in 2012 of May. And we've now been working with the state in satisfying all the follow-up action items, ordinances and the like that need to get done in order to support what's been defined in the master plan and required by the town center. The goals, I think I alluded to them briefly, but quickly, in order to develop commercially, you need to make the area attractive for commercial use, and that means increasing some spaces for impervious soil and buildings. So we want to be able to give the builder or developer an opportunity to put a footprint on the property that'll actually pay him back and encourage folks to come to Barnegat. Obviously, once you do that, then our tax can increase because you get builders who want to come here, they increase the rateables and our tax rate, and I'll leave it up to you guys to figure out the math on that, but it helps us. And the master plan in its core defines design standards by areas. So we were very sensitive when we put together the master plan to recognize the heritage of Barnegat. And what we wanted to do was make sure that that stayed in the design standards. And so we wouldn't have arbitrary, minimal kind of requirements on developers that would put up buildings that would be eyesores and not consistent with the overall theme that we want to portray in Barnegat. And then the plan does go into defining what are certain things that the township would want, permitted use, some things that the township would not want. Nuclear waste disposal, things, not as dramatic as that, but you want to be clear when you start to define these ordinances of what can and can't be in a particular zone. And we spent a lot of time going through those criteria. So out of that body of work, working with Peter and his organization that he's changed from time to time, but he stayed with us over the course of the master plan and the designations of the town center. We defined certain ordinances that supported the town center, that were unique to the town center, and those that were unique to the commercial core. So what I'm going to ask Peter to do is to take us through a map. Now I apologize, these will be maps that will not be easily read by, even on the projection screen. They're available in the planning office, but they'll give you an idea of what area is being considered, the changes that are being considered in those areas, and then we'll talk a little bit more towards the end about the benefits of having that change in zoning. Peter, I'll take over the controls.
Hi.
It's the Peter, I'm sorry, I didn't introduce you. Peter Vanderkoy, and I don't have the list of credentials here, but maybe you could introduce yourself so that people in the audience as well as the community.
Yeah, could you maybe use the microphone, maybe that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I didn't need the microphone?
No, you did too, but I didn't want to interrupt you.
Hi, I'm Peter Vandenpoint from CME Associates. I'm a licensed professional planner in the state of New Jersey. I've been working with Ralph and quite a few other people over the past 10 years or so on the master plan, all the planning documents that were associated with it, as well as working toward plan endorsement, which was achieved December 7, 2011. And now we're in the phase that comes after that, which is essentially planning and implementation agreement phase, where you actually are able to utilize the town center and commercial core that was conferred, hopefully bring in, attract new commercial rateables, essentially qualify for additional grants and funding and various other benefits that designation provides. The map to my right here is just...
Standing right in front of the side of it.
I'm sorry, I'll go as far as I can.
Sorry.
We're flying out together on Thursday.
There we go.
Fixed it. That's why you're the engineer.
So the map to my right it's essentially just a zoomed in view of the existing zoning map. It shows a view of the town center area, and just to orient everyone, the CN zone, which is shown to my eyes in somewhat of a white or light blue, that's where we are right now. And if you were to continue eastbound Bay Avenue, you come to the intersection with Route 9. Then if you travel north and south, it extends to the north, almost to the town boundary. To the south, it ends just before, I'm not sure if it could cross street for reference, but several hundred feet south of the intersection with Route 9. And the ordinances that Ralph referenced, essentially, the way that this was implemented is the state confers the town center, which enables you to get more development, more impervious coverage, relaxed standards, especially for the CAFRA area that we're in, the Coastal Area Facility Review Act area. And the way that's what's delegated from the state to the municipality. At the municipal level, it's up to the town to actually enact ordinances to take advantage of those benefits of increased impervious coverage and those kinds of things. And what was done was a set of overlay zones. And the way that's been implemented is through the C-PhD zone, CN, and the CV zones. Those were the ordinances that were enacted as overlays. And those ordinances, they're known by the same name, they just have a town center prefix onto them. And what that means for those overlay zones is essentially where the town center overlaps any of those zones that I mentioned, you can actually take advantage of the benefits that were conferred by the state. Where it does not, you'd have the same that you had before. It would just be as it was in the past. One thing I wanted to point out, in the CV zone, the historic district, which is a navy blue, might be difficult to see, but essentially Barnegat Township's historic district has been excluded from the ordinances of the town center. And the reason for that is that the ordinances, they do encourage more intensive development and would change the character of that area. So in order to keep it historic, it was thought to be best, especially in keeping with historic preservation guidelines, to not confer those benefits in that area.
No?
No.
I know. Well, I'm not the engineer.
Thank you, Ralph. That was a good presentation.
Any questions? I got it.
Okay. And this slide, I think some of these points have already been addressed, but it's essentially a town center is an area that's targeted for growth. And one of the things that was negotiated with the state, because it is essentially a negotiation process in determining the boundaries, is that within the center, that area would be targeted for growth. Outside the center, you'd have maybe an increased effort to get preservation, conservation, to protect the environment, especially in like the PW zone, for instance. So it is an area targeted for growth, and this map is just a preliminary draft version of what's essentially a type of land use map. The purple areas are actually vacant properties, and the red areas, just for instance, and I won't spend too much time because we have a few more slides. The red areas are areas that where the buildings or whatever facilities exist, there is just a minimal amount of impervious coverage, and they have much more of a potential to have additional development on those sites. This is a zoomed in view of the northern portion of the town center. And this is the southern section, which is by far the larger portion. And just to orient ourselves again, the municipal building is up in this area here. And essentially this is the historic district, is right in this area here. And this is the Gunning River Road redevelopment area. This is an image of the commercial core, same type of mapping, just showing the different types of land use designations. The main difference between the commercial core and the town center is that the town center is geared toward mixed use, primarily commercial, but also you can have some residential in there. Commercial core is intended to be targeted specifically for commercial uses. And the commercial core actually permits up to 80% impervious coverage, whereas the town center only permits up to 70%, so it's actually a more intensive zone. With regard to benefits and opportunities, you have permitted a wider range of commercial land uses. As I stated, the impervious coverage benefits, 70% in the town center and 80% in the commercial core. With regard to impervious coverage, you can, of course, if you have additional development potential on your property, it does raise property values. It's more attractive to developers because they have more design options. They can actually get a greater yield for the property. And it also makes, for properties that are falling into disrepair, the potential for renovation and also tear down and rebuilds higher. And not just because of the impervious coverage, you can also have a significant advantage in grants and funding applications for those properties. And as a segue into this slide, this is essentially what this slide pertains to. You have, for businesses, they can actually get some advantages in terms of direct applications to the state for grants and funding. The town can actually have an indirect benefit in the area where when it submits applications for grants and funding, it gets additional points. That can improve the streets, improve the streetscape. That makes it the area more attractive to business. And here we have a couple examples of before and afters. And essentially one of the primary principles behind the town center and commercial core is to not just develop it more intensively, but also make it just nicer looking and better operationally. In the top right photo, you have a parking lot with no defined curb, and really this is a kind of an antiquated way to design. It's just a sea of asphalt that doesn't look very nice. And one of the principles in the town center commercial core is to bring that development up to the street. Maybe have some on-street parking where it makes sense, but primarily actually put the parking on the side and in the rear yards so that you have a nice, consistent streetscape as you look down the street. And that's really what you have in both photos on the right. This image on the top and the bottom is top's before, bottom obviously is after. The main difference though, since I just went through the streetscape, the thing I wanted to point out here is these are one-story commercial buildings. On the bottom you see that they're two-story. And the significance of that is, where you don't have a lot of impervious coverage permitted, your limiting factor is often parking. You can only make your building as big as you can get the parking spaces for. And with increased impervious coverage, you can obviously cover a higher percentage of the land, add more parking. So instead of getting a one-story building, you can actually get a two-story building. And if they're designed appropriately, it can be a huge benefit to the district. And this sort of bringing it all together is showing the streetscape and development brought to the street frontage. You can see there's some on-street parking. Presumably there would be parking at the rear on the side of these buildings. And this is not proposed for Barnegat because obviously the site over here might be a bit much, but this is just an example to show how the street could look overall.
Al, this is a test.
Yes, I want to know who the gingerbread man is.
Here's another example of mixed-use development. We just wanted to throw in there.
Just making sure they're paying.
Yeah,
Exactly.
there you go.
And with regard to potential additional measures to encourage development, there are potential considerations for tax abatement incentives. And you could have a local tax abatement program. Criteria really could be up to the township. From what I understand, the time frames, there may be some constraints there, but you could set up a tax abatement program in areas where it would be beneficial. There's a CAFRA forested area transfer of development rights, or the CFA TDR program. That's a potential program. This just to sum it up, essentially, if you're going to develop in the CAFRA area, you have to preserve a certain amount of forested area on your site. Since the town center is targeted for growth, there's kind of a conflicting, those are conflicting principles in that area. So one potential program that the township could pursue with DEP is to have an area outside of the center, essentially as a land bank. And if you want to develop in the center, you could put your forested area there, or preserve a large environmentally constrained area, provide additional benefits because of the contiguous nature and the overall environmental benefits out there. And you could develop the areas in the center more intensively. And finally, this slide and the next slide pertain to services and resources for small businesses. You could potentially establish a small business resource center or leverage a center that's located in the county. There are programs that have been enacted in many different towns to encourage local shopping and attract visitors from outside the township. There's potential for the appointment of a township employee on a part-time basis to act as a business advocate. And there's also potential to create a special section of the township's website to essentially like highlight the benefits of coming to Barnegat, shopping in Barnegat, establishing your business there, and also promoting local businesses. Resources, of course, the township's number listed at the top, as well as at CME, John Hess and myself are always accessible. We know the backgrounds, obviously. Having been involved in the intimate details, I mean, if anyone has any questions about a specific piece of property, its zoning constraints, I'd be happy to speak with them.
The one thing.
That's all I have.
Yeah. Thanks, Peter. It's just the one thing I want to make a point of to the committee as well as to the public is that the fact that we have this all in place, we talked about grants and things of that sort, The state works on a point system, is the way I understand it, correct?
Correct.
So by nature of us having put the effort and the funding, frankly, over the last several years of getting these artifacts put in place, gives us extra points towards the grants. So we would be put at a higher part at the top of the list as opposed to a township, say for Lacey, for example, that is now trying to designate a town center. And it's probably a 3 or 4 year process. So if 2 people went up, equal kind of requirements and seeking a grant, filled out the application coming from our township because of the work we've done with the state would be give a higher priority and more likely that that person would get the grant.
Correct.
Right? So I guess we could just open it up, Mr. Mayor, for any questions. I know we overran the 15 minutes. I apologize for that.
That's okay. It's an important issue. Is there anybody out there who'd like to speak or have any questions? Jackson?
Oh, hold on. I got to turn this on.
Rose Jackson, 12 Marblehead Place. You talked about having guidelines for how the design of these new business developments would be. Now, is that sort of just a generic kind of guidelines, or are you specifically saying that maybe every shopping mall, a little strip mall, has to be designed in a colonial architecture, they must all have brick buildings, or is it just saying, well, everybody has to have a sidewalk and a curb and that?
Yes, okay. So it's pretty specific. The design standards actually, we have pictures. So we'll have the type of cornucopia. Is it cornucopia? Right? That's a word, right?
Cornices, sir.
Cornices. That's what I was
Cornucopia is the thing you have on Thinksgiving with the food.
That's right.
I don't know if
Time
that's,
of year.
is that what you're going to have? in
Well,
the
that's what we're going to
house?
have. But in addition to that, well, we have definition of the architecture. And in certain sections of the town recommending the era of the architecture that we would expect it to be. What we try to do with the town center is phase it so that each of these zones would have requirements that were specific that would show like a phasing in and a phasing back out of the town. So yeah, to answer your question, it's pretty specific, not constraining, but I think in a way that it's specific enough where our developer can pick it up and get a great idea of what we would expect and not vague to where they can, put like a cinder block building and a sidewalk out there.
Because I've been in communities where they do have consistent planning or design structures so that every time you went into a strip mall or a shopping center, they all had a very similar architecture. And I'm really saying specifically, they, I'm not an architect, but, having specifically colonial or traditional, and I think, just from my own perspective, that really adds a lot of value to the town, and it
Yes.
makes it look like a really nice community that people would want to go to.
I agree, and that's what we
Okay,
did.
Good, thank you. My second question is, the master plan, a group, do you have a lawyer or an attorney assigned to that group as
Yes,
you
we
were
do.
meeting? And who was that, sir?
Mike, oh my God. McKenna. Mike
And
McKenna.
he's also the lawyer for the planning board?
Yes, he is.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. Maddie? It's on this subject, Maddie?
Yeah.
Okay.
Matt Robdo, 108 Railroad Boulevard. The question on this subject and with the master plan, do you know when the construction will be starting, or is it just like you're just explaining how it could look, or
Yes.
are you gonna be starting construction?
I wish I had the money to start construction, but it's development. What this does is provide the framework for developers who come in, and every application will have a unique timeline tied to it. This doesn't imply that any construction is beginning.
Okay, so you're saying from the town center is from Georgetown to where town? Is that
Barnegat Boulevard, actually.
huh?
Yeah, it's Barnegat Boulevard.
To Barnegat Boulevard to Georgetown? Is that the?
That's it.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, man.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to do your job.
No, that's good. No problem. Garage door man.
Yes. I think everybody up there can vouch for me. Wayne Pulowski, 709 South Main Street. Is there any plan to make developers aware of this designation?
Yes.
I mean, everybody in this room knows, and a couple dozen people around town know, but that does no good if there's no plan to make them aware that,
Yeah.
that these options are available.
Absolutely. So part of the EDC, I think, is going to look, we're going to look to the EDC to help get the communication out.
I'm a member of the
Absolutely.
EDC too.
Right. So we need to get to the property owners. We have lists of all the property owners. And we want to work with the realtor community here because I think that's another viable channel. And I know you guys are going to have a meeting on Thursday, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'd like to stop by and maybe we can talk some more about how we can get that done.
You're more than welcome.
Yeah, thanks.
Like I said, my concern was just that this is all great stuff that's happening
Yeah.
and all important stuff.
Yep.
But if nobody knows about it,
Yeah, see,
the greatest plan.
and so I got, and just so, if you indulge me, we got it to a point where we are, and now I really need help to get the word out, and, through the organizations, the township organizations, and other community vehicles to get the message out to people who can now help operationalize the plan that we put in place.
Great, thank you.
Okay, man, thank you.
Pesci? You have your hand up, right?
Oh, he's not allowed to ask a question.
His hand up.
You have the proper.
Anyone else out there?
Please. Yeah, Mary Ann.
Mary Ann Clementi, 565 East Bay. Basically, my question is, I had no, CME, is that a new firm? Brand new firm?
It is in town, as far as a consultant, it's been around since 1983.
Oh, because I noticed, I saw John Hess's name on that.
Yes.
So he's now associated with that?
That's correct.
From Birdsall?
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
And you are a design firm, right?
We do, it's full service engineering, planning, survey. We don't, it's not
Not an architectural.
Not architecture, no,
Okay.
yeah.
And are you paid to do this by us right now, or are you just
Let me answer the
coming
question.
to us?
So yeah, the planning board has contracted with CME as we go out for RFP every year. And part of the RFP for this year, we included in the budget dollars so that we can work with an engineering specialist and professional that could help us write the ordinances, create the design and vision that we wanted in the master plan, and then work with the state at the level of technical detail that we felt we needed to have. Because I can't, right? I don't think anybody on my board is competent in that area. So yeah, CME is working under contract for the township.
Mayor?
And you went out to bid on that, right?
Let me follow up on that with respect to the questions that Mrs. Clementi's posing. With respect to the planning board work, there's usually two funding sources regarding that. Number one, if the planning board work has to do anything with an applicant, then that applicant is responsible for placing funds in escrow, and that applicant will pay for that work, the review work, the inspection work. In regards to the town center designation, since this is a direct benefit to the Township of Barnegat, and the Township of Barnegat has engaged CME, ultimately the Township of Barnegat will be financially responsible for paying any and all invoices submitted.
No, I think it's long coming. I mean, because you're right, going back to the 70s with this master plans,
Yeah.
crazy. And everybody kept talking about the master plan, nothing's being done. So I'm very happy to see it happening now. But I just want to make sure that the finances are done properly.
We have a budget. Dave's been very clear on what I'm allowed to spend, and I think we're under budget at this point. And
Okay.
that's why, one of the reasons I
And
came
also the
forward.
bidding process and the vetting process of the firms that we're using.
I want to make it clear that according to New Jersey state law, local purchasing law, that professionals do not go out for competitive bid. However, they are subject to the RFP process, request for proposals, in which cost is not the only consideration in awarding the bid.
I agree. I
Thank you.
don't think that,
Okay.
I agree that cost shouldn't always be the consideration, but that's why I said, and the vetting process.
As far as I
So,
know. Yes,
all right.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marion. Anyone else out there? If not, I'd like to say thank you to you gentlemen.
You're very
Thank you
welcome.
very much.
We're gonna-
You're welcome.
Help bring coffee next time.
I just want to say one thing on that. The Denny's and Sweet Jenny's project that is in the works will be for the subcommittee on December 22nd. They are in that zone. They're coming to the planning board subcommittee with their plans, and they've notified me today they've signed up 3 more stores.
Oh, no, 22nd.
22nd.
You told me 17.
December 17th. is the,
Subcommittee.
No, 22nd, or Tuesday the 22nd.
Next Tuesday, the site planning subcommittee will meet with the developers for Sweet Jenny's.
November.
Yes. What did I say?
November.
You say December, what did you say, December?
It's November.
November, it's next Tuesday.
So they're moving forward. They signed up a few more stores, and they really want to get this thing going and break ground springtime. So it's on the move. And again, without the help of the town center, it wouldn't go this fast. So I thank Ralph and I thank his team. They did a hell of a job. They really did. All the years, it's not easy. And as you know, government is not fast. Let's put it that way. So there's a lot of red tape with the town center that will not have to go through, which is great. So with this first project, when they do break ground, I think it will encourage more development in that area, and people will see that no longer is Barnegat not friendly to development, but now they're commercial friendly and looking to build and get some tax ratables here. So just a little note. Thank you again. Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate it.
Mr. Mayor, we're going to leave this one poster up for folks to take a look at. We'll take it away later. That's the overlay map that Pete and I shared with you.
Thank you again. And now committee report. We'll have Mr. Lucella. We'll start on to the right.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple brief comments this evening. First, I fully support the ordinance pertaining to the rental properties.
You on?
Am I on?
Yeah. Yeah, I heard him.
Okay. Try it again. I fully support the ordinance pertaining to rental properties on the agenda for the first reading tonight. Any legal mechanism that we can put into place to improve upon the regulations and enforcement of rental properties, I will encourage, promote, and support. Unfortunately, while most landlords and tenants are responsible, a small minority of rental properties cause an issue, and therefore the need for having such an ordinance. I would like to thank the township attorney for his time and effort with preparing such a detailed ordinance. And believe me, it's detailed. Hopefully, this will be the first of many steps this township will take to curb some of the long-standing issues and problems Barnegat has experienced with certain rental properties and their tenants and landlords. As a real estate agent, I can tell you without hesitation that rental properties kept in the state of despair or ill-behaved tenants have an adverse impact on the entire community and definitely drive down property values. So again, I support this ordinance along with its considerable financial fines or penalties for the first reading tonight. Second, I would like to offer my congratulations to Al Billy for his election victory. While a very good friend of mine, I also know that Al works hard on behalf of this community. I am happy to see him elected to a second term on the township committee, and there is no question that he will work diligently for the residents of Barnegat. I want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving, and we have a very important football game tonight, the Panthers and Patriots. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Taylor?
Okay, we have to start coordinating our speeches since you took mine.
Okay. Say ditto, man, that's it.
On the agenda this evening for first reading is an ordinance dealing with rental properties. I am pleased to bring this ordinance to the Mayor and Township Committee for consideration and adoption. I came up with this idea for this ordinance after seeing the problems in some rental housing in town and hearing problems from both our building department and police department. This ordinance was designed to give the building department and the police department more authority to protect our residents, including the renters in our town. The ordinance will require all the landlords with residential units in the township to register their properties and to obtain a license. This process will enable us to put together a comprehensive database with listing of all rental properties, the landlord contact information, and tenant information. Is anyone done?
That wasn't for you. Sorry.
We will also require inspections of all rental properties, at least once every 3 years and more if a new tenant moves in. The inspections will enable our building department to make sure that the properties are maintained properly and not in dangerous conditions for renters. The ordinance will also give the police department more authority to prevent crime in the neighborhoods with rental properties. For too long, a few renters have caused problems for the majority of our good rental communities. The ordinance will force landlords to do a better job of policing the residents and will hopefully reduce crimes in those neighborhoods. I hope the rest of the Township Committee will join me, although I know Marty will, in approving this ordinance on the first reading tonight, and then passing it on the second reading at the next meeting. We need to start to clean up our rental communities, and I believe that this ordinance is a good start to that process. And I also would like to thank Township Attorney Kevin Starkey for taking the time to prepare such a comprehensive document that contains all the items that of concern regarding these rental properties. And I also would like to give my congratulations to Mr. Billy for a fight well fought and won. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Billy.
And number one, I'd like to say thank you, Sharon, for coming back. We all missed you.
Thank you, Sharon.
And thank you for being here with us tonight. We appreciate you. Thank you so very much. Miss you. And by the way, I do support that ordinance, but I'm not going to speak about it because I don't want to bore everybody to death. On the election, first off, I would like to sincerely thank the voters of Barnegat for having faith and confidence in me and electing me to a second term on the Township Committee. Clearly, the voters of Barnegat rejected the negative campaigning style and embraced the campaign which highlighted accomplishment and achievement along with the presenting a vision for the community. Rest assured that I am committed to a job and dedicated to this township. So to all you who supported me, I will work hard and will not let you down. Good government is based on compromise and consensus building. I eagerly look forward to working with the members of the Township Committee here, along with other community leaders in order to advance the cause of the township. While it may not work in Washington, D.C., I strongly believe that a bipartisan approach to government here in Barnegat will yield productive and beneficial results to a deserving community. Again, I thank you all for your support.
Thank you.
No.
You're not done yet?
No.
Right away, you're taking over.
I got 4 pages here.
Be my guest.
Thank you. The Buy and Barnegat program, I did briefly, and then I've got to go into something new. The successful Buy and Barnegat program continues to be worked in the month of November. The purpose, again, of this program is to promote local businesses and to encourage residents to shop locally by providing up to 20% discounts on purchases made at participating merchants. With over as of this morning, 2,300 discount cards were issued. Many merchants are now requesting me that the Buy and Barnegat program be offered year-round. The township, along with the Chamber of Commerce and the Chamber and participating merchants, will explore that feasibility. However, in a continuing effort to encourage economic development within Barnegat, I am working with the Township Administrator on a possibility of establishing a program which will provide property tax relief for residents who shop locally. Called the Property Tax Card Program, it allows a municipality to issue a card, and when issued at the participating Barnegat business, will reduce or credit the annual property tax of the resident. 2 municipalities are installing that, Marlborough and my old town of Bayonne. And they've successfully implemented this type of reward program that promotes local commerce while reducing property taxes. Hopefully we'll be able to get the report back with a viability of such a program here in Barnegat. After reviewing the details along with talking to officials in those communities, I hope we'll have established a successful program here in Barnegat. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too would like to acknowledge the first reading of this ordinance is coming up. I won't belabor its details. It is a lengthy ordinance. There's a lot of detail to it. The township attorney and I have gone through it, and there have been several efforts to dot our i's and cross our t's. It is an outstanding ordinance that provides Barnegat the opportunity to start taking steps forward to trying to stem the tide that's been occurring in the Lexington area. It's going to be a little bit difficult in the beginning to initiate. There's going to be a lot of moving parts. There's going to be some bumps in the road, and I'll ask everyone to please forgive us as we make it happen, as we teach our code enforcer, as we teach our police how to utilize this ordinance. However, that said, again, it's an excellent tool, and I must again congratulate Committeewoman Elaine Taylor for developing what truly is the beginning of what we need to do here in Barnegat to fix what's going on down there. In that regard, a focus of enforcement will be with certain sections of Settlers Landing. For the last 25 plus years, Barnegat has faced many difficulties with quality of life and safety issues in the Lexington or Barnegat Woods section of the town. In response, over the last several years, the township has taken some short-term but yet effective steps to curb some of the problems this neighborhood has faced. These efforts include, but are not limited to, several cleanup projects, enhanced police activity, focused enforcement on the Uniform Construction Code, and installment of surveillance cameras. However, in order to provide permanent relief to residents living in this section of the community, the township must commit to a comprehensive action plan to address the multiple law enforcement and socioeconomic issues present in this area of town. In order to develop this much-needed plan of addressing outstanding issues in Lexington, I have asked Township Committee member Marty LaSala and Township Administrator David Breeden to join with me to create a working group that will draft a plan of action required to resolve the many issues presently impacting the Lexington area. Even though it will take some time to finalize such an ambitious plan, this government must move forward and be aggressive with addressing Lexington and the surrounding area. The continued challenges and difficulties being experienced in Lexington adversely impact the well-being of the neighborhood along with the overall value of the town. In other words, what happens in Lexington adversely affects the entire township. We as a caring community should be concerned with the Lexington neighborhood, and we all should have a strong desire to ensure that the working middle-class families living in Lexington have a safe and healthy environment needed for the proper upbringing of their children. I look forward in the coming months to working together to develop a comprehensive plan of action that will furnish permanent relief and ensure an acceptable quality of life to the many hardworking people and families who reside in the Lexington area. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Excuse me. Happy Thanksgiving. Let's wish them happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
To them. To them.
And to you all,
Well,
very happy Thanksgiving.
I forgot. I want to remind.
Thank you. Just one thing, I just want to say that in the Lexington area, there are a lot of good families living in that area. This will help them with their homes that they purchased and raised their families and just got caught up in a bunch of rental unfortunate incidents. But just so people know, there are good people living there, so we will protect all of them. Thank you all.
Mr. Bean. Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple of brief reports tonight before we get to the agenda items. Number one, at the last Township Committee meeting, we had a member of the public expressed some concerns regarding parking on Lower Shore Road, mainly during competitive sporting events that occurred down there, mainly on Sunday. The individual expressed a concern regarding getting out of his driveway during those games. In response, the township has posted some temporary parking signs in that area, in addition to putting some cones. Next year, the township will be able to adopt an ordinance designating that area as no parking. Again, I think we need to acknowledge that the popularity of Lower Shore Road has increased over the years, and as a result, during game day, there could be literally hundreds of cars down there, but nevertheless, the township will take affirmative action and making sure the residents' driveway is not blocked during game day. Number two, at the last Township Committee meeting, a resident expressed some concerns regarding reverse 911 and why it was not used during a water main break west of the Parkway. It's my understanding that resident had an opportunity to sit down with members of the police department that are responsible for 911, and they explained to her exactly why We could not use 911 during that time period, relatively consistent with the explanation she was given the night here at the Township Committee meeting. It's my understanding that those issues or concerns have been resolved. I do believe the Township, through the Police Department, has tested the 911 system community-wide, and it worked effectively and properly. Again, at times when you deal with a third party, unfortunately you are at their mercy at particular situations or times, and that was an occurrence. However, I want to advise the public that whenever there's a major event approaching, whether it be storm weather related, we reach out to our third party administrator and make sure the 911 system, the reverse 911 system, is working properly and correctly, and it did during, I think, both Hurricane Irene and Sandy. Third item I'd like to report on is paving. We've been discussing paving for the past several months in this room during committee meetings. It's my understanding that all paving projects in Barnegat have been completed, and the contractor is currently working with the township engineer with respect to completing punch list items on the project. The paving includes Hillside Avenue, the entire length from West Bay to Route 9, 6 or 7 streets in Settlers Landing, in addition to West Bay Avenue from Horizons West to almost 72. That was a county project. Again, the 2 projects under the direct responsibility of the township were DOT projects. And again, the township engineer has advised that the majority of work has been substantially completed, and the contractor is currently working on punch list items. My fourth report ties in with a resolution on page 3 of the agenda, which deals with certifying the current year 2013 Best Practices Inventory Questionnaire. In 2011, Governor Christie issued a toolbox to municipalities that would help reduce the cost of operation. Part of that toolbox was the completion of a questionnaire with respect to best practices. In 2011-2012, the township completed that questionnaire, and again, consistent with state direction, we have finalized that questionnaire for 2013. The basis of the questionnaire is it asks approximately 50 questions with respect to township operations and whether or not you have adopted or endorsed or embraced certain best practices occurring across the state. The questionnaire is like a test. If you get an A, you keep all your state aid. If you get a B, you lose 1% of your state aid. If you get a C, 2%, and you go down the scale accordingly. In 2011-2012, the township did not lose any state aid. Essentially, we got an A, or the majority of the questions we answered affirmative, that we're practicing those items that reflect best practices. For 2013, again, out of the 50 questions, we answered 43 affirmative, which is an A, which we receive all our state aid. For the most part, the questionnaire has remained relatively consistent over the past 3 years and has 6 major categories. I need to go over the categories in order for the township clerk to certify this and send it to the state so the state doesn't come down and take her away. So I will certify the 6 categories right now. Category number 1 is general management, and under general management, the first question, believe it or not, is shared services. And Barney gets a big old yes, affirmative, positive for that. Category number 2 is financial standards and procurement. Category number 3 is budget prep and presentation. Category number 4 is health insurance. Category number 5 is personnel. And the new category this year is disaster preparedness. Shocking, but disaster preparedness. Again, Barnegat answered affirmative to 43 out of the 50 questions. Therefore, none of our state aid is jeopardized. And for the 3rd straight year, we have successfully answered the questionnaire in order to obtain 100% of our state aid. So again, I just want to recognize that the best practices questionnaire or inventory was discussed publicly. All township committee members heard me say it, public heard me, talk about it, so township clerk can certify it tomorrow and send it to the state. Going to the agenda, on page 2, ordinance 2013-17 for first reading, ordinance amending certain codes and regulations surrounding rental properties of the Township of Barnegat. I think Township Committee, through the reports, have done an excellent job in communicating the purpose or goal behind this ordinance. Again, I would like to acknowledge that Mrs. Taylor was the driving force behind this. I would like to recognize that Deputy Mayor McCabe used her legal skills to review it and provide additional comment to Township Attorney Starkey. Again, I'd like to acknowledge Township Attorney for doing a commendable job in drafting what I would consider to be a complex, detailed ordinance. It was over 2 months worth of effort in which he reviewed other ordinances from at least a half dozen towns and incorporated the best practices of those ordinances into our ordinance. Again, as with any ordinance, it will be publicly challenged at some point in time in a court of law, and adjustments and modifications will be made if necessary. This is a strong tool in our arsenal to effectively manage and control rental properties in certain areas of this community. On page 3 of the agenda, resolutions 423 through 426 are called Chapter 159 resolutions. This is inserting revenue into the budget after the adoption of the budget. 423 is inserting roughly $1,700 of revenue for Bulletproof Vest. This is a federal program. 424 and 425 are inserting revenue into the budget for DOT paving projects of roughly $120,000, $172,000 respectively. And resolution 213-426 is inserting $2,000 into the budget from Sustainable Jersey Small Grants. That is part of the $2,000 we got for the Buy in Barnegat program to help publicize and market the program in the future. The state has recognized that as one of the better programs in the state to promote local businesses. Resolution 427 is the 2013 best practices. We have already covered that. On page 4 of the agenda, I just wanted to acknowledge approval of the 2014 boat races. My understanding that we have 2 organizations that wish to race boats down at the dock during the summer. I want to make it clear that none of the boat races will be occurring over 4th of July weekend. 4th of July weekend is a very active, busy weekend down there. Boat races simply place too much of a burden on staff and facilities to safely and properly accommodate. As we've been discussing all along, the municipal dock and boat ramp is becoming a popular area, not only for concerts, fishing, crabbing, but for boat races. On page 5 of the agenda, 213, 430 through 433, and 435 and 436 are canceling taxes for totally disabled veterans consistent with state law. If the VA issues a letter to the state indicating that the person is 100% disabled as a result of military service, their entire tax bill is waived. That is, again, in accordance and consistent with state law. Page 6, Resolution 2013-443, reimbursement for conduit services. Again, in accordance with state law, the state requires us either to reimburse or provide services to qualified condominium complexes, and most of this is for sanitation, tipping fees, and street lighting. Resolution 2013-445, increasing Schedule C with the County of Ocean to $33,000. The increase is roughly $22,000. Most of that represents street sweepings picked up during Hurricane Sandy. And finally, Resolution 2013-446. This resolution confirms, verifies, and certifies that the Township of Ocean has 8 bus stops on State Route 9, and that we wish to continue to use those bus stops. Did I miss anything?
No.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll be departing.
Need a motion to open the public comment, please?
So moved. Second.
We are now open for public comment. Yes. Rose.
Rose Jackson from Marblehead Place. I do want to thank the police department for being so helpful to me and showing me the 9/11 system that they had. I called the police chief up one day and called me back 10 minutes later and said I could come in 10 minutes. So I've never had such good turnaround time in my life in this community, but I did really appreciate it. I do have one outstanding issue about the Comcast phone numbers, but I'm sure that that will be answered at some point in the future. Do you understand what I'm talking about?
No, you do not.
Oh, you do not understand? From what I understood, that the phone list did not include the phone numbers that people have Comcast as their vendor.
Okay, let me
You
check that out.
understand that?
Okay, yes.
Okay, thank you. And also that the police department, I know, is planning on doing this, is to publicize how you could get on the internet and update with other phone numbers that, like your cell phones, if you wanted that to happen. So those are the two things that I don't know if have, I know they're in the plans, but I don't know how they're going to implement that. So thank you very much. Something did come up after the master plan people were here. I didn't think of it when I was asking my question, and it really does pertain to the question I asked. Since I did not hear that there was an architect as part of the master planning committee, unless I misunderstood, I knew CME was part of the master planning committee. Is there an architect that was involved in this? Are those people still
Yes.
here?
Well, one of the people here. Yes.
Oh,
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yes, we had support from Scott Taylor in defining some of the initial design standards.
okay. My other question is, if there are design standards, who approved those design standards? Was you at the township committee where the approval, I'm not clear on how that approval process goes. In other words, suppose this architect came up with a design to make it look like what do I want to say? It makes it look like a 1920 city. Who approved that? Or if they made it say that everything has to have brick houses and they all have to have awnings and they all have to be painted green. I don't know who made that approval because I don't remember ever hearing that. Was that part? That wasn't part of your presentation, was it?
No, it wasn't, but that would be part of an ordinance. So the design standard ordinance is actually going in front of this panel for a first reading. They'll have that content. The township committee will be in a position where they can approve that ordinance.
Okay.
Dave, did you want to add something?
It's my understanding that with many planning board related ordinances, the township committee approves on a first reading. It goes to the planning board for review and consent, and then it goes back to the township committee for second reading and approval. So both committees, both groups or organizations are involved in the process. But ultimately, any ordinance has to be approved by this governing body.
So my next question is that when that particular ordinance comes up before the township committee, will the design actually be displayed to the community so that they can see what it is?
Most likely the design is part of the ordinance, it's included in the ordinance. I can remember many times where we had poster size pictures or photographs of the design, so it's painfully clear to everybody in the audience exactly what we are doing.
Okay, that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jake?
Thanks, Mayor. Dick Taylor, 106 North Road. I'll be brief. I'm going to compliment Taylor on no relation. That ordinance is long overdue. That ordinance is long overdue, and I just hope it includes COs on all rentals, because COs have nothing but a positive effect on the housing and what property goes out in this town. COs were waived in the past, and they shouldn't be. All rentals should include. I hope it's in the ordinance. I haven't seen it, but that'll be fine. That's all on that. And I only got briefly. I just want to thank Dave, Mike Ball. What we had was we had a ceremony, Veterans Day, from the VFW Post. I'm the Community Affairs Chairman, and the Post building, which is a township, an old township building, was in need of repairs, and Dave had Mike Ball, he brought his crew down there. They put a new they fixed the ceiling and everything was tip-top shape because we did have a bunch of students from the school come in there for lunch and also, you know, it's nice to see. People always complain about the people in Public Works, but they'd come in there with that crew and bingo, they knocked it out. It was a real nice professional job too. So, you know, them guys deserve what they get back there. They did a good job down at the post that, but they get ready for that ceremony. But thanks, Dave and Lenny.
Thank you. Behind you, man.
Mary Ann.
Who said?
Mary Ann Clementi, 565 East Bay Avenue. Elaine, congratulations on a great job. I really want to talk about the fact that I found it a little disconcerting that Marty brought up that subject when it wasn't his project, and it was your project. But I see it as an issue that's been happening. Used to do that on the election, the Board of Election, when it was Al Cerule's. I think it's, and when Mr. Billy brought up his project, which was excellent, on the discount, the Barnegat, buy in Barnegat. I mean, that's what you guys should be working on. In other words, you have a project that you're working on, and you report on it. You don't report on somebody else's project. This is my input, okay? And I think that it's a disservice to people knowing, you know, what you're working on, because otherwise it's all fluff up there. You know, since Elaine and Susan came to the board, the detail of your reports, and your reports are very important to us, because it's telling us what you are doing as our representatives up there, so that we know that this is what your function is. And when you reported, Marty, and I know you're going to get angry with me for saying this, you didn't report anything about what your job, what you did, you know, as your job. And I think that's important.